Hi, my name is Elianna Paninos and I was an intern at Acre Student Farm this past summer. In this video, I'll show you how you can save seeds from this fall's harvest for next summer's garden. Seed saving is a great way to save money, preserve your garden's genetic diversity, and provide food for pollinators like bees. Before we dive in, there are a few general guidelines for seed saving. First, don't save seeds from hybrid varieties, as you will not get the same thing. The seed packet should be labeled as a hybrid if it is. Secondly, it is illegal to save seeds from some varieties. The seed packet should also have a label that says something like illegal to propagate if this is the case. Lastly, keep seed varieties separated or you will risk cross-pollination. Usually 1/8 of a mile is recommended at the very least for homeowners, but of course this usually isn't possible. Instead, consider tying little bags around the flowers to prevent cross-pollination. But of course, experimenting with crosses can be fun. With all this under our belt, now we're off to the races for seed saving. When checking to see if your plants are ready to harvest for seeds, you'll want to wait until the plant is fully mature and the pods are crunchy and dry, unlike this lettuce on the left and asparagus bean on the right, which are both still flexible, squishy, and water-filled. While waiting for your plants to dry out, you can cover your plants like the sunflower, so birds or other animals don't eat all the seeds. These sugar snap peas are a perfect example of a plant that isn't ready yet. But after the plant has matured and has started to die, then you can look for pods that have turned brownish white, that are crunchy to the touch, and have seeds rattling inside. The pod on the left is not quite ready yet, as the seeds are still a bright green and are still moist. The ones on the right, however, are perfect as they are all dry and shriveled up. This asparagus plant offers another good example, with the pods on the left not being quite ready as they are still flexible and squishy, and the seeds are bright green inside. The pods on the right, however, are perfect as they are brittle and break apart when squeezed. The seeds inside are all dried up and dark in color. These are yellow straight neck squash, and these little guys are still too small to harvest, but are getting there and are good to eat. This one, however, is no longer good to eat, but is not yet ready for seed collection. We know it's ready when the skin becomes hard enough that you can't pierce through it with your fingernail. Some important things about squash: we have multiple different varieties of squash here in this field. Pumpkins, zucchini, golden zucchini, acorn, this straight neck, and crookneck squash. So they're all going to cross-pollinate. So we don't know what we're going to get next year if we save these seeds. But that's okay if you're not set on a specific squash for next year's garden and you're curious to see what kind of squash you could get. Here is a fully matured straight neck squash. You can tell it is because when you try to indent it with your fingernail, it doesn't do anything, as opposed to before when you could cut it with your fingernail. And here is that scar from when we did that earlier. You can see how much it indented back then.
Alright, so these are Persian cucumbers. They're a different variety of cucumber. This is one that's like a couple days you'd pick it to be ready. It'd be a little bigger than this. This one's gone a little past where you want, but still good to eat. And then over here, we have ones that are getting way too big, so you can't eat these at this point. But they're not yet ready for seeds. You have to leave them on the vine for longer. And you want it to turn yellow. So these are regular pickling cucumbers, but this is what they look like when they're ready for seeds.
And once they're ready, you can cut off the ends. As you can see, there aren't any seeds there, just flesh, which is good because we don't want to cut our seeds in half. Then we'll slice it down the middle and try to pull it apart without disrupting any of the other seeds inside. So the white foamy layer you can cut through, but in the middle where the seeds are, you want to leave as uncut as possible. Then we'll get a spoon or some other scooping utensil to scoop out the gelatinized seeds, just like if you were making a zucchini boat. Then you'll want to get the seeds out of the pulp, which can be a process. After composting the extras, you'll be left with the seeds that will still be covered in a gelatin-like casing. Seeds with gel around them, like this cucumber or tomatoes, can be placed in a cup with warm water and can be left for a couple of days. Some mold growth on top during this time is okay. Theoretically, the bad seeds will float and good seeds will sink. This has to do with the weight of the embryo. Undeveloped embryos are very light, and so they'll float. Then you'll want to strain the seeds through a colander and rinse them off with running water. You don't want any pulp left on the seeds, as it may rot. Then you'll want to lay out the seeds on a paper towel to dry. Cucumber seeds should be dried until they snap rather than bend. In Laramie, this might take just a few days, but in more humid areas, this could take a couple of weeks. To recap, the general steps for seed saving are waiting for the plant seed or pod to fully mature and dry, then completely drying the harvested seeds out on a towel, after which you can store them in a dry container in a cool, dry space.